Sorry. Thank you.
It's the 20th year of the Moorilla Hobart International, the last chance for the best female tennis players in the world to get valuable match practice ahead of the first Grand Slam tournament of the year in Melbourne next week. It's been a week of upsets and plenty of matches going the distance. We've now reached the business end of the tournament with two fascinating semi-finals to come today before the final tomorrow. The fans are here. We're ready to go. It is the Moorilla Hobart International live from the Domain Tennis Centre in the middle of Hobart. And a beautiful sight as well. Hello and welcome to the Domain Tennis Centre here in Hobart for the first of our semi-finals this afternoon. And the cruise ships are here, the fans are here, and we're not too far away from a start. Sloane Stephens, the number 8 seed, will be our first match, and she'll be taking on Elena Vesnina of Russia. My name's Peter Mercado. I'm joined in commentary for the next couple of days by international tennis journalist and broadcaster Eleanor Preston. Nice to see you. Happy New Year, El.
Happy New Year and happy new tennis season to all of us. And what a way to start here in Hobart.
It certainly is, and very much looking forward to two very close matches. We have had plenty of upsets over the course of this tournament, and when you've got a tournament like this where the highest ranked player is 25 and the last direct acceptance is around 68, you're going to see plenty of competitive matches all the way through, and that's what we've had during this week.
And I think that's a feature of the WTA Tour over the last 3 or 4 years, is that, as you said, the gap is very much narrower than it used to be between the quality of players, and there's a lot of competition between that 50 and that 25 mark, and certainly this week has borne it out, and a very, very high quality of tennis so far.
Certainly has. Well, the players getting straight into the warm-up. Let's introduce them to the crowd. Elena Vesnina finished inside the top 100 for the 7th straight year in 2012, reaching the final of the WTA event in Budapest and the quarterfinals in Auckland. Overall, the Russian is a 6-time runner-up on the WTA and represented her country at the 2012 London Olympics. Last week, she again reached the quarterfinals of the event in Auckland. To get through to the semi-final stage here, she beat the qualifier Silvia Soler Espinosa in the opening round in straight sets, the 4th seed Yaroslava Shvedova in 3 sets, and Australian Jarmila Gajdosova in straight sets in the quarterfinal. Please welcome from Russia, Elena Vesnina. Sloane Stephens had a breakout 2012, reaching 2 semi-finals on the WTA and the 4th round of the French Open, ending the year inside the world's top 40. The 19-year-old was a member of the US Fed Cup team last year and recorded 4 wins over top 30 ranked opponents. So far in the tournament, Stephens has recorded a first-round win over Laura Robson and a second-round win over Simona Halep in straight sets, with a 3-set win over American qualifier Lauren Davis in the quarterfinals. Please welcome back to centre court the 8th seed from the USA, Sloane Stephens. And please welcome your umpire for this match from Scotland, Lucy Grant. So I'm expecting another tie contest here. These players have met once before. In fact, actually, it's their first meeting for these players. So we'll take a little period of adjustment, but really enjoyed watching Sloane Stephens. And her progression throughout this tournament. And certainly there are big raps on Sloane, particularly in American tennis circles, and she's certainly starting to realise that potential at just 19 years of age.
Absolutely. She turns at 20 in March, one of only 2 teenagers in the top 50, along with Laura Robson, who, as you mentioned in your introduction, she beat on the way through here. And I think Stevens is one of the standout young players on the WTA Tour, and certainly in the context of American tennis, she could potentially be very, very important, not just because of her clear talent and her ability to back up good results with more good results, but also she has a very winning personality and a very marketable personality, and I think that bodes well for tennis in the US. And you mentioned Lauren Davis there. Those two served up a very, very intense and intriguing match in the quarterfinals, which was hugely entertaining. And along with people like Madison Keys, who's impressed us this week in Sydney, pushing Lee Na very hard, there's a very good crop of young Americans, and I'm sure that's really helped Sloane as well to have that competition around her.
Absolutely. Sloane ranked 29 in the world. It is her highest ranking, and considering her 2012, she didn't play the last 7 weeks of 2012, yet still finished inside the world's top 40, is testament to how well she is playing at the moment. Played last week in Brisbane and pushed Serena Williams, and really showed why she's got that enormous potential and why she could do some great things. She's seeded 29 for the Australian Open next week, and will very much be a force to be reckoned with, and really one of those outside chances for the title.
Absolutely, and I think anyone on her side of the draw is going to be slightly not worried exactly, but wary of playing Sloane Stevens. And I think throughout this year, I foresee Stevens being one of the standout players. And you talked about her breakthrough year in 2012, and I see 2013 as a year in which Stevens can take another few really big steps forward.
There have been a heap of highlights here at the Moorilla Hobart International. One of those was that match with Lauren Davis yesterday, 7-5 in the third set. We've seen so many matches go the distance, and here was a little of the match between Kirsten Flipkens, who'll be up a little bit later, taking on Monica Niculescu. And unfortunately for Niculescu, she did end up losing the match in 3 sets, and now finds out that she's playing Victoria Azarenka in the first round of the Australian Open. But it was a really intriguing match. Niculescu is a tricky player because she does hit with forehand slice. She's quite unique. She'll come into the net, she'll run down everything, and it took Flipkens a while to adjust to the game style, but from that second set it just shows what great form the Belgian's in.
Absolutely, and Flipkens herself is somewhat unconventional, a very attacking player, likes to use the slice a lot, which can pay dividends on this surface.
It certainly can, and it was a good win in the end for Kirsten Flipkens. Let's take a look at Elena Vesnina's path to the final. As I mentioned, Silvia Soler Espinosa, the qualifier in the opening round. Tricky match against Yaroslava Shvedova. One of the things you'll notice if you're joining us for the first time is it gets quite windy up on the hill here in Hobart. 3-set win, took a little while to get going there, and then was great against Jarmila Gajdosova, 6-3, 6-2 in the quarterfinals. Very much on the comeback trail, Gajdosova there. And Sloane Stevens, as you mentioned, Laura Robson, 6-2, 6-1 on Sunday, and then a win over Simona Halep in straight sets, and that was a big match. Lauren Davis, who really fought hard coming through qualifying, 7-5 in the third set, and speaking to her in her post-match media, she was pretty happy to get through that match and pretty happy to have a tricky match like that where she is pushed, which will put her in good stead for next week. The weather conditions, beautiful here in Hobart. You couldn't get a better day. 26 degrees. The breeze at 35 kilometres an hour. It will gust throughout this match and make it tricky for the players, but they've had plenty of time out here on court this week, so they'll be used to it.
And they'll also know which end is which in terms of there's always one end of a tennis court which is easier to serve from, and that will be on their mind as well. But you know, as you said, they've got used to the breezy conditions here in Hobart, and actually today is one of the calmer days that this tournament can serve up. But that again is very good practice from Melbourne, which can get very windy, and all in all, they'll both be very, very happy with how their Australian Open preparations have gone this week.
Well, for Elena Vesnina, following up that quarter-final, she lost to the eventual champion Agnieszka Radwanska. To follow it up here with a semi-final is great for her. 68, little off her highest ranking of 22, and I know that she'll be desperate to get through this semi-final, but also to get into the final and actually win a title. She's been runner-up so many times, and that's been a hell of a streak, and she just wants to make that breakthrough. Well,
there are two ways of looking at Elena Vesnina's record. One is that she's done very well to make 6 WTA Tour finals, and that's and other ITF level finals as well. So that's hugely impressive, because that's it certainly beats losing in the first round of events. However, going 0 for 6 in those finals is not particularly healthy for her psychologically, but she's still got to get there.
Here we go, the first of our semi-finals at the 2013 Moorilla Hobart International. Sloane Stephens to get us underway. Talked a little bit about the players being so evenly matched across this event in terms of ranking and also in terms of game style. We're going to see another one here with plenty of power from the back of the court from both players.
Absolutely. And I don't think we should underestimate Elena Vesnina. I think she's perfectly capable of giving Sloane Stephens a very, very big and difficult match today. And she's capable of beating the American. There's no question about it.
One of the other things that's been really good to see over the course of this event is how many times you've heard a player being introduced and the words career best or breakout 2012 season.
It's a very healthy sign for this tournament that it's attracting, up-and-coming players who are ready to make their mark.
Not a bad way to get started when you haven't played each other before.
Not bad at all, and we're seeing some few hints of the kind of attacking tennis that Vesnina is capable of. If she's going to clean the lines like that, she's going to have to do it over and over again through the course of this match, and it's a question of whether she can keep that up consistently against Stephens.
Well, wasn't cleaning the line, but it was very close to it. And one of the things for the Stephens game today will be it's got tremendous power off both wings. It's just a matter of being able to hold her level over the course of a match. We do see it drop from time to time.
And that's perhaps a little bit her age and a little bit of getting used to playing at this level as well.
Deuce.
So back to deuce, bearing in mind too that, as I said before, missed the last 7 weeks of 2012, and that was spent not training at all. So just being a normal person, just going out to movies, hanging out with friends, off the tennis tour.
She slightly got away with a rather dodgy drop shot there, did Elena Vesnina. Interesting choice of shot. But certainly showing lots of variety and pushing Stephens here already from 40 love up, now facing break point, and certainly aware that she's going to be in a match today.
And right onto that return of serve too. Well, it's a pretty handy serve from Stephens down the middle, but there's the break in the opening game, and we've seen that more often than not across this tournament due to the windy conditions. A lot of players choosing to go and actually receive first.
Yes, and I think that return straight down the middle was also a very clever play, just cutting out the angles, cutting down the options.
So good start for Vesnina. Break of serve. We'll see the players trading breaks throughout this match, and it almost becomes a matter of whoever can hang on and hold serve long periods of time will end up winning the match.
Yeah, but that can also be a very positive thing.
Elena Vesnina to serve.
Because it's a measure of actually return of serve. I think is one of the shots which over the WTA tour has actually improved consistently among a lot of players. It's become a very important part of any player's game.
I like the change-up from Vesnina. We've seen that plenty of times throughout this week. Very accomplished on the doubles court too, not afraid to come to the net, use that as an attacking shot.
Doubles and indeed mixed doubles as well.
Ouch. 30 love.
Not got a great record in doubles and mixed doubles finals either. Lost 3 Grand Slam mixed doubles finals, including Wimbledon last year, and with Leander Paes. And already, as we talked about, the return of serve is becoming the most important shot for both of these players out there.
It's a good indication of the power that Sloane Stephens has. The wind starts to pick up. That'll be a feature throughout this afternoon and this evening.
Very interesting what you were saying about Sloane Stephens opting to take that prolonged break at the end of the season, and that may be the most valuable rest she could have taken. Rest her body, rest her mind. So many overwhelming new experiences for her over the course of that breakthrough year.
First ace for Vesnina to consolidate the break. We're all square, 1-1 in this opening set. The first of our semi-final coming up today. Looking forward to tonight's semi-final featuring Kirsten Flipkens of Belgium, who will be playing the defending champion Mona Bartel of Germany. And to see that ball kicking up off the serve from Stephens, making it tricky for Vesnina to bring it down. Does like to step into the court and really attack the ball.
It's interesting because the serve is actually one of the areas of Stephens' game which she and also quite a few observers have identified as an area that could take a little bit of improvement. And I mean, it's very healthy for her that she has areas to improve on.
Great depth again from Vesnina.
30.
Do to opponents just try and throw them off their rhythm. See Stephens behind, well behind the baseline. And there you get an indication of the breeze just taking that Vesnina forehand, and just a little bit of extra power there makes it tricky for Stevens to be able to pick it up.
Well, you can see the wind. When we go to our wide shot, in the right of your picture, you can see the covers which are shading the players' seats at the side of the court, and they are moving around all the time.
Another break point here for Elena Vesnina. Get off to a dream start in this opening set. And it's wide. So Elena Vesnina off to a great start, a quick start in this opening set, leading 3-0 in the semi-final. And already Sloane Stevens brings David Nankin out to just have a chat through a few things early stages.
Interesting to see what he says. Her body language has become a little bit negative over the last couple of minutes. Not surprisingly, really. She gave a racket a bit of a bounce at the end there. Just some signs of frustration coming in.
Certainly it is a time for Stevens just to set a little bit. A chance to look now closely at the Vesnina game to get some sort of read on the ball.
And also, I think, to get a sense of perspective. It's still very early on, and yes, she hasn't started very well. But at the same time, there are still opportunities.
And if she plays some good tennis, she plays some good tennis. Remember, we battle. Is key, slice.
Sloane Stevens chatting with her coach David Nankin early stages of the match, and you can understand why Elena Vesnina 3-0 in this opening set. First of our semi-finals at the 2013 Moorilla Hobart International. Big test for the American.
I was just going to say, this is where the coaches earn their money. The addition of on-court coaching has been one of the more interesting developments over the last sort of 5 or 6 years. And it certainly puts pressure on the coaches, because you can be a hero or a zero, really. He may find that it's all his fault. On the other hand, he may have just said a couple of things which clicked something in Sloane Stevens' brain.
Yeah, it's certainly added a new dimension to the women's game. It is only on the WTA and often can be a sounding board. Saves the players having to shout mid-match at their coaches, which can happen from time to time. The coach can actually respond.
Interesting, they're often mic'd up when they go out there, and it's quite nerve-wracking for a coach to have to go into that situation. And not only do you have a really tiny amount of time to impart just a little bit of wisdom, but you're also doing it when lots of people are listening. There have been one or two well-known incidents where arguments have broken out, and you get people having a bit of a domestic on court.
And what Stevens is finding now is that coming up against a player who very rarely misses, the ball always be coming back to her. At times there with the slice that came in, she has to generate her own pace. You throw the wind into that equation, it makes things difficult, and Vesnina is certainly the more settled of the pair.
It's absolutely true, and as I mentioned, the Stevens body language still a little slumped in the shoulders, still a little irritated with the situation, the scoreline, and the circumstances she finds herself in. And again we see Vesnina just having to take a couple of beats, waiting for that wind to drop.
Again, just a struggle with the timing on the ball from Sloane Stephens there.
I think part of that, she may be just trying to vary the pace a little bit and try and mix things up just a bit for Vesnina and break the Vesnina rhythm, and that may be something her coach talked about at that change of ends, but it's not working at the moment. She seems to be succeeding really only in unsettling herself.
And Vesnina all rolling her way at the moment. 4 games to love in this opening set. One of the other things, too, is that playing in windy conditions is a study in concentration, because no two balls are the same. So say, for example, they go up the middle of the court. One will have the gusty breeze, the next one won't. You really need to be balanced, really need to be very quick to make those slight adjustments to cater for the wind.
The other thing to bear in mind is that because this is really her sophomore year, if you like, on the WTA Tour, Stephens isn't particularly used to being amongst the favourites for tournaments. And you look at this last 4, and she is, by some margin, the strongest player on paper left in the draw. And she, for my money, is the tournament favourite at this stage. And that is a very new situation for her. You know, a year ago she was in qualies here. And you know, I think we have to bear factors like that in mind with players. As you know, tennis is played on an emotional level as well as a tactical and a technical and a physical level. And in Vesnina, she's playing someone who's awkward and accomplished and experienced.
Chance to get on the board here in the match, Sloane Stephens.
Just nothing is coming easy, is it, at the moment for Sloane Stephens? She has the air of someone who thinks the world is against her.
And whenever she now tries to put that pressure back on Vesnina by trying to go for the lines, try and play that natural power game, the unforced errors start to creep in, and that adds to the frustration. She was in a good position in this game, but an unforced error there, and we come back to square one.
Very like the first game of the match.
That had a little extra power on it with the winds.
She played the conditions smartly there, and that would have felt good. That would have released a little bit of frustration, and also just felt like she was taking control a bit there. She actually won that rally twice over, I think. She needs to capitalise, though. That's what she hasn't done so far in this match. She hasn't been able to put strings of good points together.
See now the switch up of play too. We've gone from a power game to just trying to work the breeze and try and get that slice. Take the pace off the ball. Give Vesnina something different to look at.
And as I mentioned earlier, the slice can be a very, very effective shot on this surface. And we've seen players really make great purchase with it. But you have to execute it well enough.
And when nothing's going right, the umpire tends to be brought into the equation too. Saw in a match against Lauren Davis yesterday, a really tight third set. The tension started to get to Stevens. The racket was hurled away. Facing another break point, 5-love. Elena Vesnina after a flying start. And there it is. 19 minutes we've been playing, and the Russian Elena Vesnina 5 games to love in the opening set of the semi-final. Well, it's a great start for Vesnina, and Elena Vesnina, you might also tactically from that particular end of the court just try and drop the ball in short, because Sloane Stevens is really good side to side, but it's that forward movement to try and pick up the ball that's the issue.
Yes, I think Vesnina and her coach Andrei Olhovsky and her dad Sergei have worked out a very effective game plan against Stevens, and as much as we've talked about Stevens having really a very uneven performance so far, you must give credit to Vesnina, because she's played cleverly, she's played the conditions well, and she's played her opponent smartly as well.
Yeah, she certainly has, and just taking control of the conditions. Not the first time that she's played here in Hobart, so quite used to the conditions here, and that will help as she gets out and serves for this opening set. So Elena Vesnina, just 20 minutes, already leading 5 games to love.
Well, Sloane Stevens needs to find an answer here, and she needs to find it quickly. At least get on the scoreboard in this first set, just to settle herself down and feel like she's got some say in the outcome of this match. Otherwise, it's going to be taxi for Miss Stevens.
It's tricky to serve now. You watch the ball toss move in the air like that.
It was a good catch under the circumstances.
Look out, because Sloane's not happy. And I'll give the umpire some credit there too, just to make some allowances for the tough conditions. But Sloane Stevens now hitting into the breeze, can free the shoulders a little more, go for their shots.
But it's putting together those 2 good points in a row that we've been talking about. Can she do it here? No sign of a sorry mate yet. Yeah, great Pat Rafter catchphrase from days gone by, where he used to catch the ball. And it's funny how some players, irrespective of the conditions, I remember Carol Kuchera, another one who always used to catch the ball, never quite happy with the ball toss. And Vesnina not happy with that double fault, that's for sure.
Oh, nicely done. Good touch. A little bit of disguise thrown in there as well from Sloane Stevens.
And suddenly she looks as though she's thinking a lot more clearly out there. That fog of disappointment and irritation and frustration has lifted just a little bit, and she's able to pick the right shot at the right time. And now all of a sudden she is stringing series of points together. She's also, I have to say, getting a little bit of help from Vesnina, who's struggling at this end of the court.
And the reason being is that Vesnina is just having to slow down the pace on the serve, almost rolling them in just with that adjustment of the ball toss. Normally throws the ball up quite high, but you need to allow for the wind, so lowers it just a little bit. And we've seen the players throughout the week just make those adjustments, roll the ball, go for placement rather than pace.
Yes, if you throw the ball up too high here, it'll end up back in Melbourne.
So what you're saying is Steffi Graf may have struggled here.
I can think of one or two players who might have struggled here. Conchita Martinez, on the other hand, who used to throw it barely a couple of inches above the top of her head, would have been fine.
Unfortunately, we had Annabel Medina Garrigues withdraw from the event as well with an abdominal injury. She would have been fine too. Still a break point, though, to get on the board in this match for Sloane Stephens.
She needs to capitalise here. Been a very good game so far from Stephens, but the last couple of points she's been overhitting again.
Is there Vesnina with the volley, looking for the call. Sloane Stephens on the baseline. She pretty much stopped, and you cannot afford to do that.
I think she underestimated the spin that the wind put on the ball. I think she anticipated it going one way and it went quite the other. Caught her by surprise, and her footwork in that rally, she was in all sorts of bother, wasn't she? Constantly being pulled out of position and looking as though she was never quite set for the shot.
Vesnina doesn't need too many second opportunities. Again, facing a break point, and certainly for Sloane Stephens, a couple of factors at play. Try to get a break back here and get a foothold in the match, but also avoiding the bagel.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of positives of coming out of this game. The knowledge that she could break the Vesnina serve. Just getting on the scoreboard's got to give her a little bit of a boost. A second serve to conjure with here.
And gets it. Winner up the line. Sloane Stephens on the boards. It's that power game. That's what we've been seeing and why she is 29 in the world. Vesnina, 5 games to 1 in this opening set of the semi-final.
Well, will the real Sloane Stephens please stand up? She didn't so much conjure with that second serve as eviscerated.
Yes.
And again, the footwork just a little bit suspect there, I think.
A really impressive return of serve from Vesnina. They've been landing just on the baseline and not giving Stephens any time to react.
But the performance overall, I think, from Stephens so far has been very reactive. She's never looked really in command of herself, of her emotions, of the conditions, or of the match.
And that allows Elena Vesnina to do as she likes, hitting freely. And now with 3 set points. And Sloane just wants to get things moving pretty quickly.
Very smart second serve, that one. It helped a little by the wind. Thought the outside of the tram line there, and didn't give Vesnina much chance on the return.
Should mention no Hawkeye here at the Moorilla Hobart International. Terrific. Change up again from Stevens, this time taking the opportunity to get to the net. And while it's 30-40 and still a set point for Vesnina, the sign's looking a lot more positive that Sloane Stevens has actually settled into the match. Well done again, not blasting away that first serve.
It's very possible that the set is too far gone for Sloane Stevens, but the psychological advantage of just coming out of this game unscathed would be huge.
Now we're just starting to see some unforced errors creep into the Vesnina game. It's such a high level to start off the match. Part of that helped by Stevens being a little out of rhythm, but certainly opening the door for Sloane Stevens to get back into this match. So Stevens holds. It'll be Vesnina again serving for this opening set at 5-2 in the semi-final.
Vesnina leads by 5-2.
So the sign's a little more positive for Sloane Stevens, and from Elena Vesnina's point of view, just those unforced errors, they're allowing Stevens back into that game, saving a couple of set points, and it's a matter of whether Vesnina can click back in to that game, or certainly the game that's carried her to 5-love in that opening set.
I think so, and the other thing is she's serving from the opposite end. She's serving away from the end that gave her so much trouble on her serve in a couple of games ago, so that's going to help her a little bit.
Yeah, it will. And the breeze gusts up from time to time, but then it drops away and then allows for cleaner hitting of the ball, as we've seen throughout this tournament this week. So Elena Vesnina coming out to serve again for this opening set, 5-2. That's certainly improvement from Sloane Stevens. It was 5-love.
Improvement really is the only option at that stage, isn't it? And Stevens duly just breaking the serve to cling on, and then just about consolidating by a fairly shaky, but in the end a hold of serve nonetheless, and pressure back on Vesnina just a little.
Vesnina with the advantage of serving with new tennis balls as well.
Stevens hasn't played well when she's had the wind behind her. Played much better into the wind. And that's certainly an adjustment she's going to need to make.
Well, got herself into a good position. Again, it was a shaky drop shot from Elena Vesnina, but the line was open. And that's good pressure by the Russian just to pick a side, and I think Sloane Stevens was always going that way. Just had to go for that little bit extra. It didn't come off.
There was some high quality hitting in the middle of that rally. The wind just dropped just for a few seconds and allowed them both to take clean strikes of the ball. We got a glimpse of what's possible out there.
So a miss hit from Stevens. 3 set points again for Vesnina. That's a great way to win the set. Elena Vesnina, the dominant player in this opening semi-final, taking the opening set 6-2 in 34 minutes. And really, Eleanor, Preston, it was all one-way traffic, at least for the majority of that opening set. Some good signs from the number 8 seed, but Elena Vesnina got that game going from point number 1 and out of sorts Sloane Stephens. She really wasn't allowed to get into the match.
She wasn't. It was all Vesnina. And Stephens really just putting in quite an uneven performance overall in this first set. Really only rallying, so to speak, a little bit in the last couple of games, just really getting herself together momentarily. But I think, I'm sure we'll have a look at the stats in a moment. I don't know how healthy they will be for Sloane Stephens. Perhaps it's a good thing that she won't be able to see them.
Well, that was a little of the frustration coming out towards the end of that set. Just getting acclimatised again with the windy conditions. Tricky for both players. Vesnina very experienced here in Hobart. And that drop shot, again, sitting up. It's a little bit of a worry. Got away with it that time. But if there's anything to work on with her game, it would be that drop shot, because Sloane Stephens will start to get a read on that. Certainly the signs are a lot more positive. But well done to the Russian for serving it out too. Was pretty emphatic. 6-2 opening sets.
Stephens certainly has to regroup here. She will feel disappointed and unsettled and irritated and all of those things, and she needs to just put that set behind her, ignore the conditions, play the ball in front of her,
and has the advantage of serving first in this second set.
all looking so promising, that rally, wasn't it? And then just that final shot found wanting, and that really has been the story of Sloane Stephens' day so far. You'll notice Vesnina stepping right in on the baseline on these second serves of Stephens.
The interesting part about it is statistically, and look at the first serve percentage of Sloane Stephens, 75%. So no issues with serving, no double faults so far for the match, but it's there. It's the work at the back of the court that's the issue. 45% first serve points won, 37% on the second ball. One of the things with the Sloane Stephens game, Eleanor, that I've noticed across this week is that getting into those attacking positions is good, but just struggles to put them away. Will often play up the middle of the court, doesn't really take any pace off the ball to try and generate some angle, and will keep playing them at the net in a really strong position, but should just be varying up the angles a little more.
And that's one of the things that she needs probably to add to her game, a little bit of tactical nous and bringing in perhaps a little bit of gear change. Because people will start to suss her out, if you like. They will start to understand how to play Sloane Stephens. You know, she's not going to be the rookie on the block anymore. She is going to be an established player. And players like Vesnina, they can work these young players out very quickly.
And again, you saw there, just straight up the middle of the court. It's more about how hard that ball can be hit rather than the positioning in the court.
I think just overall she hasn't really got a handle on how to play in these kind of conditions. And by Hobart standards, it's not even that windy. We're not talking extreme conditions, but it is a bit blowy.
And there's the break again in the opening game of this second set.
First game, second set.
And that will continue to frustrate, I should say, Sloane Stephens, who must be said just slowly wandering through, not even bothering to get some refreshment on the way through, which is a good thing. We see Serena Williams just walk from one side of the court to the other, which all players should be doing. But
yes, she sometimes looks every inch the teenager, doesn't she? Only a teenager until March, but certainly a teenager now as we look at the semi-final stats for this first set that we've just watched here. And as predicted, not particularly healthy for Sloane Stephens. 26% of first return points won, which is just not good enough. It's not like Elena Vesnina has a rocket serve that needs to be contended with, and Stephens really needs to make better purchase, starting right here with this game.
Love 50.
Double fault number 2 for Vesnina in the match.
And I believe the first one came from this end as well. She just doesn't like this end nearest to our commentary position. Stephens down at what we might call the harbour end.
13.
Matched with ace number 2. And when that ball toss can be out in front, there's no problem with the conditions. Just very good movement through the legs. Comes through the ball well.
As you mentioned, she has been ranked much, much higher than this. Although that was back in 2009. Potential is there.
30-50.
And one of the things, if you're Elena Vesnina, you're probably smiling right about now, thinking, well, it's not able to get the game going, hitting really well. Just a matter now of whether Vesnina can just continue this level to finish off the match.
She'll be looking down the court. She's a seasoned campaigner, Vesnina. She'll be looking down the court, looking at Stephens' body language, listening to her mutter under her breath. And she'll take all of those as positive signs.
Oh! 40-50.
And again, Sloane Stephens just looks into the crowd for a coach. What can I do now? I get the feeling we might see David Nankin on court the next change of ends.
Well, I think she needs to get him out there before it's too late. She needs to just try and get herself out of this emotional state that she's in. We saw it lift, didn't we, for the last couple of games of that first set, where she broke and held and just really looked a lot more together. But she's reverted back to the form of the first few games of the match, where she's looked unhappy with pretty much everything that's going on around her, and certainly unhappy with her own game.
And that's why too. So Vesnina holds pretty comfortably in the end. 2 games to love.
Nina leads by 2 games to love.
It's a tricky proposition for Sloane Stephens, who wants to sort of free her arms and really hit outs, but not in any sort of rhythm to be able to do that. You then go to plan B, try and take the pace off the ball and just work it around the court. Well, that's tricky because coming up against a brick wall and Elena Vesnina, who's not missing very many at all. So caught in a tight spot, and it becomes a matter of working point to point rather than game to game.
Well, we come back to the old, very well-worn cliche about taking things 1 point at a time, and you're constructing points and constructing rallies. Just engaging her brain a little bit more. In these conditions, I don't think Sloane Stephens can hit her way out of this problem. I think she has to think her way out of it and start selecting her shots a bit more smartly. But it's difficult. It's one of the things that all young players have to learn is how to win when you're not playing well. Form isn't something that you turn on with a tap. There are days like this, and Sloane Stephens is having one of those days where it just isn't working for you. It doesn't come together. Your opponent's a little bit better than you expected. You're not playing as well as you hoped. All of those factors come into play. It's windy, and she needs to find a way how to get herself out of these situations, because it won't be the last time that she walks out there and the magic just isn't there.
What's the title of that
40-15.
famous tennis book? Winning Ugly, which is what Sloane might need to do here.
Game,
Stephens holds though. And Elena Vesnina, though, still with a break. 2-1 in this second set after 45 minutes. And not surprisingly, David Nankin is coming out to have a chat to Sloane Stephens and just try and settle there. I think they can take some positives out of that previous service game, that all one-way traffic, and try and work out a game plan here for getting back into the match. It may not be natural. It'll be completely different to the way she's played in the past. But if you're giving Elena something different to look at and change the momentum of the match, let's see if we can have a listen.
Okay, so let's fix that. So you stick with your crosses, and when you feel you're solid, you change that line. I mean, we always say play with the forehand, but right now, if you're off a little bit, doesn't mean you go for more. You stay aggressive with going after your shots, but keep it disciplined, okay? All right? And also, if the racket is too loose, change it up. Get a new one out there, okay? You know, but energy, positivity, all right? Come on.
So David Nankin, the coach of Sloane Stephens, out on court, and some very wise words. Don't go for more if you're in trouble. It's one of the key things. And Sloane made mention of the fact that I'm just struggling for purpose at the moment.
Yes, it's always interesting to be a fly on the wall, and that's what we love about on-court coaching, particularly when coaches are mic'd up like that. It just gives you a really interesting insight into what's going on between the ears for Sloane Stephens. And yeah, she says, I just feel like I've got no purpose out there. To which David Nankin said, let's change that.
Yes.
Which was, and you could just feel that calming influence of somebody offering you some solutions. And sure, we've all had moments, bad days at work, where things aren't going our way, and just to have somebody running on, and just giving you a little bit of calming and clear thinking advice would be quite handy, wouldn't it?
Yep.
You want to bring your coach on, or you're okay?
This is where it starts now for Sloane Stephens.
15.
Well, there are many, many players who've been in many worse situations than Sloane Stephens finds herself in right now, and they've managed to play their way out and get out of trouble. She needs to believe.
Certainly a lot more encouraging. And from Elena Vesnina's point of view, we saw on that previous point, just talking to herself, she knows that at some stage during this match, Sloane Stephens' game will click into gear.
She'll be expecting her opponent to roar back at her at any moment. It's a question of how well she can deal with that, whether she is equipped with the tools, technically and mentally, to deal with Sloane Stephens at full pelt. because she certainly hasn't had to face that so far. It's very much been Stevens light up until this point, but if we're seeing Stevens level lift here, that's going to place an interesting challenge for Vesnina.
That did look long.
15-4. Just away.
Just a reminder too, the umpires won't make that call or that overrule unless they are 100% sure. They won't speculate. And Lucy Grant in a good position there. It did look long. We are a long way away here. Could that be the momentum changer? Vesnina just feeling the pressure just ever so slightly in this service game. Break points for the American.
Net. Person.
Pushing herself along, Elena Vesnina.
30-40.
It's also a good test. We saw for David Nankin come out to speak to Sloane Stevens. A good test of player-coach relationship, which is still very much in its infancy. They've been working together since Wimbledon last year, but they haven't had a lot of tournaments together. So good to get the full range of emotions for both player and coach. Still another break point, though.
Opportunities just slipping through Sloane Stevens' fingers here. Chances to break and just frittering them away.
When you haven't been playing well, it can often be tricky to know when to pull the trigger on the big shot. How patient do you have to be? Well, I think your patience increases. Break points saved by Vesnina. Back to Juice. Throw that shot into the mix, the approach to the net into the mix, and that was very nice from Vesnina. Nice change up, right time to do it.
And that's where all that doubles and mixed doubles comes into play as well. Hitting those approach shots and having the confidence around the net, really take control of that zone of the tennis court.
There's your sorry.
Sorry, mate.
Net.
What is Russian for sorry, mate?
I'm not sure about the mate part. Mind you, I'm not sure about the sorry part either.
I was going to say.
Good hold by Elena Vesnina. Still got that break advantage. 3 games to 1 now in this, the second set, after the Russian took the first 6 games to 2. Coming up tonight, the other semi-final at the Moorilla Hobart International. Kirsten Flipkens of Belgium takes on the 9th seed and defending champion Mona Bartel. Looking forward to that one. Catch all the action right here.
That will be an intriguing contrast of styles, I think. Certainly one for the hardcore tennis fans. Flipkins very much a swashbuckling player. Bartel.
Stand and deliver from the back of the court. The big forehand, big serve.
Exactly. It'll be easy on the eye. Don't know if it'll be easy on the ear, but it'll be easy on the eye.
15.
And every game now becomes crucial for Sloane Stephens if she's going to stay in this match. Every point, much less every game.
We're right on that line. And as Lucy Grant confirms, it was late, but it was there.
Very firm umpiring from Lucy Grant there. Happy to admit that it was a late call, but just certainly stemming any arguments there. Very much in control of her charges. That was well out. Another clear and concise call from the umpire. Stephens just looked up, but I think she knew. It was more in hope than expectation, wasn't it?
Nicely dug out. That's moving from that defensive position into attacking mode.
40-30.
And Vesnina trying to cut the angles out, trying to play down the middle of the court, and Stephens just really taking charge there and saying, look, I know what you're doing. Doesn't matter. Look, take this.
And holds.
Stephens.
So still Elena Vesnina with a break. It is 3-2 in this second set.
Vesnina leads by 3 games to 2. Vesnina is requested to see her coach.
So Elena Vesnina now with this ever so slight change of momentum.
Right.
Has
just being able to, okay, belt
coach
out,
out on court. Let's have a listen.
Yeah, that's true. That's the one thing is, okay, you know what, the calm factor is fantastic, but then at times you need to just let it out, you know. Today's going to be, today's going to have to be a come on day where I'm just going to have to somehow lift myself up, and if that means belting them out somehow.
Little coaching conference going on with Elena Vesnina and probably Eleanor Preston. The right time to do it too. Still up a break in this second set, but just the sense that now the Russian is in a match.
I think she knows that, and we've seen really just flashes so far in this match of Sloane Stephens, not quite at her best, but certainly at the level that's got her to this semi-final in the first place. And Vesnina needs to be constantly vigilant. And she needs to stay in charge of her own game as well, and not become too caught up in Stephens' performance. So it's not all about Stephens. It needs to be about her and about how she's playing as well, because she needs to be able to adjust as and when Stephens' game lifts, which we've seen it lift a little, and the chances are it's going to lift again, particularly as she's fighting to stay in this tournament. And game by game, it's not as if Vesnina has cruised through this match. The scoreline is very one-sided, but Stephens has had opportunities.
And we can't underestimate the reward that's on offer for a win here. For Elena Vesnina, very experienced in finals, but the opportunity to break through and win one on the WTA. And for Sloane Stephens to also go that one step further. Has been a semi-finalist, but to take that extra step and reach a final, you're also sending a warning to the other players in the women's draw at the Australian Open next week too.
15 all.
Yes, and with due respect to both Kirsten Flipkins and Mona Bartel, the defending champion. This is arguably the stronger side of the draw, and the champion could well come from these two players that we're watching right now, and both of those girls will know it. They both come into this tournament on decent momentum. Vesnina as quarter-finalist in Auckland, as you mentioned, and runner-up to Agnieszka Badvanska, but also finished 2012 strongly. Was runner-up at the ITF Pro Circuit event in Poitiers, which is a $100,000 event, and therefore not far off WTA level. And that's significant as well.
40-50.
Doesn't make any sense, as Sloane Stephens. Well,
talking about her game.
Yeah, I think most recreational players among us would acknowledge we've all had moments like that. But she expects more of herself than us mere mortals, and she's right to expect more of herself, because she has proved that she's a hugely talented player and should be regularly contending for titles like this one. That was a sudden and ill-timed big gust of wind from Elena Vesnina's point of view. Just caught the ball just the wrong moment for the Russian.
I mean, look at how it moved the ball there. Difficult for anyone to get a clean strike on it. Still a game point to go to 4-2 in this second set. Flying along at the moment, Elena Vesnina. The confidence continues to build. 4-2 now in this second set.
4-2.
And that noise that you heard overhead, I'm not sure if our effects mic picked it up, but it was actually a seaplane just buzzing over the main tennis centre here in Hobart, making its way out over the harbour and just adding a little bit of atmosphere to the place, and also a reminder of the surroundings that we find ourselves in. It's one of the more picturesque stops on the WTA Tour, this one. And we have a stunning view beyond the court out onto the harbour and the cruise ships and the seaplanes.
Yes, it's similar to the tournament in Monte Carlo, is it not, Eleanor?
Yes, it is. I'm standing by saying, I think this time last year, perhaps the year before, that this was like Monte Carlo with sheds, and I'll stick by that one. And I think the sheds only add to the ambience and the sense of earthy charm that Hobart offers.
Just guiding that ball up the line, Vesnina. Just allowing the breeze to do the rest. Real danger signs now for Sloane Stephens, who's had to work pretty hard to even get back to this stage of the match.
Well, if the alarm bells weren't going off before, they should be now. But even more so, clanging even more loudly now as Vesnina waits to pounce on a second serve.
Love 40.
3 more break points for 5-2. Getting ever closer to a spot in the final. Moorilla Hobart International.
Good thing we looked up Elena Vesnina's record in finals, because I think we might be needing it.
Well,
15.
she's making her 6th appearance at this tournament and has bettered her best result, the quarterfinals, back in 2008.
And it's all win from here on in for Elena Vesnina. And Stevens too, if she doesn't extricate herself from this situation that she's in, and she does end up heading to the airport after this match, she can still console herself with putting in a very solid week of performances, beating some good players, and most players would be very happy with that preparation for a Grand Slam. However, I think what will unsettle her and make her most disappointed is her own performance.
A double fault again from Stevens. Look, I shouldn't say again, it was her first, but at a bad time, Vesnina now will come out and serve for the match. 5-2 in the second set of the semi-final.
Get the towel, ball boy. Thanks.
So all rolling the way of the Russian. Good point you make, though, about the players that Vesnina has beat. The 8th seed here in Sloane Stevens, the 4th seed, Yaroslava Shvedova, Yamila Gaidasova, who admittedly is on the comeback trail to top-level tennis, but it can be a dangerous opponent, particularly a former champion here. And
with the home crowd behind her as well.
Really has built her tournament nicely. And there's some of the ambience going around up the Derwent today.
Is that your lift home?
Well, I may not arrive in Melbourne until maybe late Thursday, if that's the case.
It's all right. I've packed some dry biscuits and a bottle of rum for you.
I also should say that there are 2 cruise ships that are docked in. First time I've ever seen 2 cruise ships docked at Constitution Dock, which is the completion or the finish line for the Sydney to Hobart, the famous Sydney to Hobart yacht race. There have been plenty of sporting activity here in Tasmania's capital over the past couple of weeks. Elena Vesnina serving for a spot in the final. Certainly the crowd that's here today will be cheering on Sloane Stevens. They want to see more of a match.
I'm sure that, there's an educated crowd here always at the Moorilla Hobart International, and I'm sure that they will be well aware that Stevens has been touted as one to watch. There's no question she hasn't had her best day today. And as I was saying, it'll be the performance that will disappoint her, not so much the result. I think she'll be aware that Vesnina is an opponent to be respected. I don't think she'll have underestimated her, but I think by her high standards, Stevens has very much underperformed this afternoon.
Often be the hardest match to serve, the hardest game to serve out in the match.
Yes, just ever so slightly wobbling here. We mustn't write off Sloane Stevens.
With serving like that, it's hard to go past Elena Vesnina, whose level only dropped ever so slightly towards the end of the first set, but it's kept going. The consistency has been the key to the match.
And she's coped well when Stevens has raised her game, albeit temporarily.
Too good. Again, Sloane Stevens down the middle of the court. No real angle, and Vesnina not having to move. After 1 hour and 8 minutes on court, Elena Vesnina has match points. What a way to finish. Third ace for Elena Vesnina for the match. And she is through to her 7th final on the WTA. An emphatic 6-2, 6-2 performance, 1 hour and 9 minutes. And the Russian can be very happy with the way she plays, or played today. And the 26-year-old getting the job done comfortably, Eleanor Preston.
An emphatic win for Elena Vesnina. No question about who was the better player today. And Stevens will be disappointed with her performance, and as she slopes off court looking a little bit of a disconsolate figure, but she certainly can play better and will, I'm sure, go on to play better than this.
Well, certainly has had a great start to 2013 regardless. Quarter-finalist in Brisbane, semi-finalist in Hobart, and will face in the opening round Simona Halep, and that'll be a tough test at the Australian Open, but she'll be sure that her preparation has been excellent heading into the first major of the year. For Elena Vesnina, though, who'll be hitting some promotional material into the crowds, she can be very happy, and when she reflects back on this match, her consistency was the key, and right from the very first point, she set the tone for the match. It was played off her racket.
Absolutely. The momentum was almost always with her, short of a couple of patches of play where Stevens lifted her game. Vesnina was the much stronger, the much more composed player. She coped much better with the conditions, and I think she used all her experience. She's 26 now. She's been a seasoned campaigner on the WTA Tour, and she's really stepped up and showed that today. And I think what we saw, really one of the factors being, was the difference in experience out there. And Stevens will go on and learn from this match, I'm sure, and learn how to play through in different form and learn how to win when she's not playing well.
Well, Vesnina too also reached the quarterfinals last week in Auckland, so her preparation for the Australian Open has been pretty good as well. Plays Caroline Garcia, the French reciprocal wildcard in the opening round of the Australian Open in Melbourne, but you send a warning to your rivals that you're in form by winning WTA titles in the lead-up to Grand Slams, and certainly will be no exception for Elena Vesnina, who will be desperate to get through and get that first WTA Tour title. Very much looking forward to seeing her in the final, but who will she play? We'll find out later on tonight, as Kirsten Flipkens from Belgium will face the defending champion and 9th seed in this event, Mona Bartel. They have met once before. That was last year in Quebec City, and we had 2 tiebreakers. I'm expecting a similarly close match here.
Absolutely, and I think, as I mentioned earlier, it's going to be easy on the eye, one for the purists, and certainly something to look forward to.
Elena Vesnina through to the final, 6-2, 6-2. We'll find out her opponent later tonight as we continue the Moorilla Hobart International for 2013. But for now, it's goodbye from Hobart.